What's good, my good people? Welcome back to another video. Today we'll just be doing a little bit of a ranking of my top 10 Red Dead Redemption characters slash Vanderland gang members. Because for this list, I'm going to keep it to the Vanderland gang specific members, not just like overall game characters. And I'm going to be going through my 10 to 1 and then giving a little bit of, honorable mentions once we get to number 1. And obviously, the top 3 is going to comprise of Arthur, Dutch, and John. I think those 3 are sort of automatic for whoever's making a list as the 2 main protagonists and then one of the biggest characters within the game. So it's kind of hard to look away from those 3. So the way I'm going to be doing this top 10 is it's going to be a 10 to 1. But there's going to be a sort of a winner of the other characters. And then there's a winner of the main 3, like I said. So I'm giving away already the main 3 in no particular order, of course. But those main 3 are going to have a winner. And then there's going to be a winner essentially of the other 7 of the 10. And so we'll get this off right away with the infamous Micah Bell. And so Micah is kind of hated in the game by pretty much everyone. Rockstar intended it that way for us to hate Micah because he is sort of the antagonist within the group.
Hey Arthur, good to see you.
Why? You want rescuing again, dear?
No, I got a plan to make it up to you.
He has no redeeming qualities. He's meant to be the asshole of the game, aside from, our actual villains. So he's essentially a villain without being part of the villains up until spoilers. And I imagine if you're watching this video, you've already played the game, so I don't really need to put a spoiler warning. But up until he actually becomes a full-on rat, he's always just been self-interested. So he's been within the gang and he's been basically like a brother to John and Arthur and a son to Dutch. But he always just had his own interests at heart, and he would just, like Micah would sell out anyone. He's conniving, he's manipulative, and his relentless pursuit of self-interest, for me, is what makes him a despicable character. And then it eventually turns him into a villain. But simultaneously, his presence drives the story throughout. And it makes us confront some of the dark aspects of the game's world. Like, Micah's like super racist at the beginning. He's super racist to members of the gang throughout the way out. He's just a cunt, all in all. But, like, the way he's cunty to like, even the members of the gang just kind of makes us look at the world, and then we end up feeling, sorry for everyone else that has to deal with fucking Micah's shit. But he's so well written that you end up kind of liking him. Like, I always kind of describe him as a villain that you sort of love but you hate. Like, you respect him. Like, he played the villain role so well. Kind of like Giancarlo, what's his name? Esposito, who plays in Breaking Bad, Los Pollos Hermanos. Gus, there we go, Gus Fring. I don't know where my mind was going. Where Gus was such a villain, but there was like a level of respect and a level of like, you truly believed the villainy, that I feel Micah's voice actor played that a little bit too well. But yeah, so we have Micah in 10th place for us. And then in 9th place, I'm personally going to go with Abigail. I'm going to have Abigail in 9th place. Even though she sort of has a more prominent role in the first Red Dead Redemption, and then in Red Dead Redemption 2, which was a prequel, she sort of serves as like the disgruntled wife. She's kind of torn between being with the gang. She wants to like walk away from the gang life, but then simultaneously she's still staying with John and raising Jack within the gang.
Will you marry me?
Get up. I am married to you.
No, I mean, proper. In front of God.
You serious?
I got this ring. I've had it for a long time. Take it.
You serious?
It would make me very happy if you would...
We've lived a lot of lives.
Let's just live this one from now on. You and me, Jack, a family. By law.
John, I didn't know it mattered to you.
So she's wise and kind-hearted and, like, caring. But, like, her relationship with John always seems, like, so one-sided. Like, she's not willing to accept John's flaws, right? She sort of wants the good parts of John, but then she's sort of just like, fuck you, John, with, like, the bad parts of him. Which is kind of a bit tough and slightly hypocritical since they're both in the gang, like, they're both in the life. And apparently she was formerly, I don't know if she was actually a prostitute, but she slept with several members of the gang before eventually ending up with John. So she also has, like, a questionable past. And she has a good relationship with Arthur. Like, Arthur wants the best for her family. She probably sees the good qualities in Arthur and wants those to be, like, the qualities within John. But we don't actually get to see Abigail too often within the game. Like I was saying, she's more prominent in Red Dead Redemption 1, but I will put her at number 9 on my list just because of her importance, and the character was played very well. Then number 8, I'm actually gonna go with Hosea Matthews, our big boy Hosea. He is kind of like the voice of reason throughout the gang. He basically balances Dutch's, how do I describe this? I would say maybe Dutch's impulsive nature, like Dutch's ambitious planning and everything. He sort of grounds it and sort of tells Dutch, you know, like, this is a batshit idea, that's a bad idea, that's a good idea. And then you have on the opposing side, you have Arthur, who wants, like, the best interest for the gang. So Arthur's always going to be safe and risk averse. So, like, if something doesn't need to be done, Arthur's not going to be for it. And then Hosea ends up being, like, the mediator between Dutch's extreme ideas and then Arthur's more cautious ideas.
You dumb Yankee! There you go. I never liked you.
Why'd you take the boy, Mrs. Braithwaite?
You stole my
Boys are off
liquor.
limits.
You stole my horses. Ain't no rules in war, mister.
Matthews.
Yes, that's it.
Where's the boy?
My sons gave him to Angelo Bronte. So my guess is Saint-Denis. Either there or on the boat to Italy.
Let's go! Arthur, come on! What are we doing with her? Leave her. I told you she was crazy.
So as a father figure to Arthur, and, you know, he's a seasoned con artist, he's very wise as well. Wise and intelligent is how I would describe him. And he has a knack for planning. So throughout the game, he always constantly gives us the voice of reason, dancing between siding with Dutch or siding with Arthur, always batting away Micah's dumbass ideas. But then simultaneously, his loyalty ends up getting him killed in the end, when he gets killed during the bank robbery. And it was sort of him being loyal to a fault, because he also had situations where he could have probably walked away from the gang or just said, like, nah, Dutch, I'm not going to do this. But him being the voice of reason, but also being like that father figure, sort of like a granddad of the group, he had to show up and be there for these kind of things. And so we went with Micah, went with Abigail, and then we went with Hosea. And then I'm going to go with Lenny as the next one. So Lenny's going to be our number 7, I think that's correct. Actually, no, I'm missing count. Michael was first, Abigail was second, Hosea was third. Okay, so Lenny's gonna be 6. And so with Lenny Summers, he is sort of there in the game to always constantly remind us about the situation and what was going on in the West with regards to the racial discrimination, some parts that still had slavery and that kind of thing. So Lenny is also one of those characters who's there to just show us that bit of like innocence that they had. He's like super lovable. He's super like, he's always up to try things. He's not like the best shooter in the gang. He's not he's not like the best gunman, that kind of thing, but he's always just there with a good heart. He's got like a youthful exuberance to him.
Oh. That's great, partner.
You know what?
I don't know.
Why ain't you never married?
Don't have me. That's the thing, you see, because it... Lenny?
Arthur, what are you doing? You're a good friend to me, Arthur.
Cheers. Cheers.
And he brings a fresh perspective to the game. And like doing missions with Lenny throughout was basically as fun as doing missions with Charles, where I would say Lenny and Charles were sort of like the ride or dies for Arthur, because they were just there to help the gang, help Arthur as you would like a close friend, a buddy, a bro. They were the best bros you could essentially ask for. And then, of course, Lenny's fate ends up being sealed in Saint Denis during the escape. And he unfortunately met an untimely death. It was still one of the deaths that hurt in the game, I would say. So yeah, I would put Lenny up there. And then next, I've been debating with this one because on one hand, I really want to put Sean McGuire. But on the other hand, I also want to put Kieran. But Kieran is technically an O'Driscoll, right? And Kieran ends up warming up to us, throughout the game. He starts off as one of the O'Driscolls. He tries to escape. We capture him. And, yeah, we tried to torture him, but we eventually just get information from him and that kind of thing. So I'm probably going to stick with my gut and give it to Sean. And so, yeah, let's go with Sean. So Sean McGuire. He's basically the life of the party. What would you call him? He's an Irish immigrant. He's one of the beloved younger members of the group. Basically, he's always just up for anything. Going back to the Lenny and Charles example, where if Arthur just needed a ride or die, Sean was always up for it. His death was probably the most shocking moment of the story, where he just gets clipped out of nowhere, and there was like a bad feeling of that mission going into it, but he ended up just getting clipped out of the blue. And so his actual death is, even though Kieran's death was probably the most gruesome, the headless horseman death, that was probably more gruesome, but I think Sean's was probably the most shocking.
Shit. Well, at least it ain't your job.
Ah, shut up, Arthur.
Yeah, your job's starting the fights. It ain't winning them.
I can scrap, Arthur. I'm just not good at homework.
I can see.
Besides, what do you care, Englishman? You've got no time for me. I tried to find you work, but then you're off cutting jobs with other folks, and your boy Sean doesn't get a look in.
Guess I don't want to get shot, that's all.
Ah, you're a real fucking funny shit, Arthur Morgan, eh? Real fucking funny.
Calm down.
You better sleep with your eyes open.
Yeah, well, you're gonna sleep with your chest open if you ain't careful, boy.
I love you, Arthur Morgan. I love you. Come on,
And it
take
essentially
a shot.
sent the Vanderlyn gang into overdrive. And from then on, like, none of the decision making from the gang was ever like truly thought out, truly planned, or anything like that. It always felt rushed. And then next on the list, I am gonna go with my boy Charles Smith. One of the best additions, I would say, to the Red Dead universe, because again, Charles didn't exist in the first Red Dead game. He was conceptualized in Red Dead 2. And Charles has only been with the gang, I think, probably like 6 months to a year, but he quickly proves himself to be like one of the most dependable members. As a hunter, soldier, Native American, again, he's one of those characters I can resonate with, just like with Lenny. He has like a struggle outside of the obvious issues like that the gang was facing, where the gang was at war with the law, at war with like the advancements and what was going on with the Wild Wild West being taken over at that time due to like modernization and that kind of thing. But Charles, again, being Native American, he had an even bigger struggle to face.
Let's get you down. Easy. I got you.
Let's get him comfortable.
Thank you, boys.
Don't mention it.
I thought I was dead.
Don't get all sentimental now, old man. Then I'll really think you're dying. It's gonna be okay. A few days, you're gonna be just fine. You're a survivor.
Easy.
And again, with his relationship that we see with meeting Rains Falls and all the Native American Reserve and that kind of thing, that was part of my favorite missions throughout the game. Just because it was able to just take us out and take us to like another part of the game without doing like a Guarma, right? Where Guarma took us fully away from the story and, took us on a whole new adventure. The Charles missions were sort of like we were able to see the other side of what was going on in the Wild Wild West, when even though the main battle that was in the Wild Wild West was of course between like the outlaws and everything versus the modernization and the police and everything, but they were still an underlying, an even bigger, I would argue, an even bigger struggle in terms of like what happened to the Native Americans and also the racial discrimination that was going on at the time with black people. So it was sort of like a touching way for the game to give that context and that tribute and still do it in a meaningful manner without necessarily making it feel rushed. And then, so we're gonna go to our number one of, well, not number one of the list, but number one outside of the top three, which for me is Sadie Adler. Her like development, her character arc, if you would call it, I don't know what you call it, character development, from being that widow who she probably didn't know what to do, she just lost her husband, but you could tell she was always feisty and ready to defend herself and fight for the gang. But she only really grew into her character when we got to when we got to Clemens Point. Yeah, after we moved from Horseshoe Overlook and we got to Clemens Point, and we had the whole mission with Sadie, when she had her little beef with Pearson and everything like that, and we got to do those missions in Rhodes with her. That's when we started seeing her emerge as a standout character, transforming from that grieving widow to a fierce and independent gunslinger, seeking vengeance. And herself as well, she was seeking vengeance throughout the game, and she was willing to do it at any cost. But simultaneously, she wasn't too reckless, I would say. She was reckless, but not as reckless as, you know, like Dutch at the end of it. And as well, like, she was just essentially like Arthur's sister.
You okay?
Yeah. He was a good man, my Jakey. We was always sweet on one another.
I'm sure.
Yeah. I miss him every day, every moment. They turned me into a monster, Arthur. But my memories of him, they still pure.
I ain't even got that.
Aside from my Jake, you're the best man I've known.
I know the company you keep. The competition ain't too fierce. We should get away from her.
She was ride or die. She was another person, like I would say Charles. I would say Sadie and Charles are the two fully like ride or die. They would go into war. They would put their own lives on the line for any member of the gang. And it was shown again when they went for revenge, when she got revenge for her husband being killed with the O'Driscolls, and then she also helped along, just, you know, saving the members of the gang when shit hit the fan. She kind of did what she had to do, and her resilience and loyalty and determination is what makes her a strong character. But again, she was also battling her own demons, and that's where the comparison comes in to Arthur. So it makes her one of the most empowering and inspiring characters of the game. And it was nicely done, because like I said with Rockstar, they didn't try push the character in your face to be like, oh, you have to like this character. Nah, a lot of these Rockstar characters started to take shape essentially like on their own, and as the story fleshes out, as the events of the story happen out, it was so beautifully voiced and beautifully written that everything starts to just fall into place, fall into, you know, as it goes. And so, to the top 3. Now, for me, maybe slightly controversially, but I would put John Marston in 3rd place. And so, he'd be 3rd place in the gang, but it would put him as the worst of the main 3, and, you know, the lesser protagonist to Arthur, which I know is a bit controversial because some people prefer Red Dead Redemption 1 John to Arthur Morgan as a whole. So taking away John's like sort of backstory that we ended up seeing.
All right, Arthur, come on, let's go. You go. Keep pushing, Arthur. No. No. I think I've pushed all I can. Come on. You go. We ain't got time for this. Not now. We ain't both gonna make it. Go. Now. I'll hold them off. It would mean a lot to me. Please. There ain't no more time for talk. Go. Arthur. Go to your family. Arthur! Get the hell out of here and be a goddamn man. You're my brother. I know. I know.
In Red Dead Redemption 2, I would say it enhances his character, but it also knocks his character down a few pegs as we see the more human side of him. He's level-headed, dependable. And then he has a journey from basically being a young boy to where we see him become a man. Because initially he's trying to run away from raising his family. He's not trying to step up or be that guy. He's still got some dumbass tendencies in him. And also some unlucky tendencies in him. And then we get to see the backstory of how he got those scars on his face. And then initially he, like they mentioned throughout the story, there's so many times that John tried to leave Abigail. He tried to just up and leave the gang completely. And I'm actually not sure. I don't remember. Like, my memory's bad right now. But I'm pretty sure they referenced to a time when he actually left the gang. And I think Arthur speaks about it when John just fucked off. And I think it's because it was around about the time that Jack was born. And John just didn't want to raise the kid. So John just fucked off and went and did his own thing. So there is that side of him. But then there is the side of him that eventually grew to be the pseudo Arthur replacement, because then we see how Arthur impacted him in Red Dead Redemption 2. And so basically, to honor Arthur's memory, he ends up going for revenge with the gang, and then being the man to actually like step up for his family. Even though he dies a tragic death in the end, he ended up stepping up for his family in like a position that he probably wouldn't have taken if not for the relationship between him and his brother Arthur. And I keep saying brother, even though they're not blood brothers, they're brothers by way of the gang and being Dutch's sons. Now in second place, silver medalist, I have to give it to Dutch van der Linde. One of the best characters in gaming history for me. And of course, he's only second place to another iconic character. But Dutch is probably smoking a lot of other video game characters as a whole. He's the charismatic leader of the van der Linde gang. He embodies the fine line between, I would say, charisma and madness. Like, his speeches and ideals, they initially inspire us. Like, throughout the game, when we see him reading his book, we see him referencing all sorts of speeches and famous authors and all sorts of things. But then as the story progresses, we realize that he's sort of twisting those words, twisting the stories, twisting the speeches for his own agenda. So he's still like knowledgeable and wise and such a big personality, but then he's also manipulative as hell. And as he slowly begins to unravel, I say Dutch's descent into paranoia and then his manipulation of others is what makes him probably complex and unique.
More.
Just a second.
Pay more. Pay now.
Dutch, what are you doing? Jesus. Easy, Dutch. What was that?
Horrible old crone.
But you killed her.
She was gonna betray us, Arthur. Couldn't you tell?
No.
Well, I got some Spanish. She was.
You sure you're all right, Dutch?
I am just trying to make sure that some of us survive, Arthur. Now, shall we proceed?
I guess.
Because he's also just got this weird thing of never like letting something go. I don't know if I would call it like revenge. There's so many decisions he made where you're like, oh, Dutch, you could have walked away from that and probably had a better outcome. But his ego wouldn't let him, I would say, if that's the word I would use. So yeah, Dutch overall second in this list, but one of the most iconic characters in video gaming history. And obviously number one is gonna be Arthur Morgan. Good old Arthur, our big boy Arthur. So as the game's protagonist, Arthur basically steals the show. His growth throughout the game from a loyal enforcer to a man questioning his way of life, I feel like that's what sets him apart. Because we get to see Arthur's internal conflicts throughout the game as the game progresses. his emotional journey and the ultimate redemption is probably what makes him the most compelling and relatable character in the game, and I would say probably the most compelling character in video game history. I don't think that's controversial to say. People will have their opinions and everything, and again, this is also my opinion, so it ain't that deep in the comments, but I feel like the fact that we were able to see like this flawed human being, it was such a raw character that we were able to see all the good and bad, see like ourselves within Arthur.
Morgan, are you okay?
Well, never better. What are you doing here?
Well, I'm on my way down to Mexico. They're finally sending me on a mission. Brother Dorkins is very jealous. What's wrong?
I'm dying, sister.
Okay.
Yeah, I got TB. I got it. Beating a man to death for a few bucks. I've lived a bad life, sister.
We've all lived bad lives, Mr. Morgan. We all sin. But I know you.
You don't know me.
Forgive me, but that's the problem. You don't know you.
What do you mean?
I don't know, but whenever we happen to meet, you're always helping people and smiling.
I had a son. He passed away. I had a girl who loved me. I threw that away. My mama died when I was a kid. And my daddy, well, I watched him die. And it weren't soon enough.
My husband died a long time ago. Life is full of pain. But there is also love and beauty.
What am I gonna do now?
Be grateful that for the first time, you see your life clearly.
Sure.
Perhaps you could help somebody. Helping makes you really happy.
But I still don't believe in nothing.
Often, neither do I.
Huh?
But then I meet someone like you, and everything makes sense.
You're too smart for me, sister. I guess I'm afraid.
There is nothing to be afraid of, Mr. Morgan. Take a gamble that love exists and do a loving act.
All aboard? I shall try.
I know you will.
Essentially, that's what made me resonate the most with the character, and I think personally Arthur stands far and alone as the greatest video game character we've ever seen. And what makes it even more interesting is because when he was initially revealed as the protagonist for Red Dead Redemption 2, people, they were kind of put off because people were like, oh, John, you know, they were already attached to John from the first game. But Arthur's gradual transformation from like an unlikable, loyal, just like foot soldier essentially, and then he becomes like Dutch and Hosea's right-hand man. He's able to see through the bullshit of Dutch. And like, I don't know, like there's just something about him that there's constantly good and bad fighting within him, but he's always able to decipher what's right and what's wrong, even if like Dutch has told him XYZ. Arthur's able to be like, nah, this is the best decision for the gang. And so he's simultaneously able to make the best decisions that would benefit and protect the gang versus, you know, his own self-interest and putting everyone in harm's way, that kind of thing. But yeah, let me know your favorite characters in the comments below, or your own personal ranking. I did mention that I was gonna do some notable mentions, and for me the notable mentions would be Uncle. I'll start with Uncle. Everybody's favorite lumbago uncle. I feel like Uncle is probably the most memed character in Red Dead Redemption 2. His face is infamous. And he probably gets picked on just as much as Pearson. But we regard Uncle both as a fool and a lovable character. Like he's the perfect comic relief, I would say, in the gang. So he gets an honorable mention on that list. And then we also have Susan Grimshaw, who was essentially the matriarch of the camp, the mother, the hawk, the protector of the camp. And so Miss Grimshaw's job was to keep everything up and running and to make sure, you know, everyone on the camp is doing their things. We see her being super protective over Tilly. She's super protective over, you know, everyone in the gang. And there's like a funny scene where she forces Arthur to like fucking wash himself if he comes back to camp. And as well as like she's the one who's also partly to like talk to us if we end up start killing too many NPCs and that kind of thing. So she's just there, like the mother of the gang. And then the last honorable mention I would like to make is probably, let's see, I could go with Strauss, but I don't think Strauss had a big impact on me personally. So I'll probably have to go with Javier. And so Javier, I would say, was a more impactful character again in Red Dead Redemption. That's where we saw a lot more of him front and center. But in terms of the prequel, we kind of saw him a bit more reserved. He's the best dressed character in the game. Easily. Like Javier's the only one with proper drip. By himself, that is, of course, because we can drip our Arthur out, but that's when we do our own thing. But there's like a scene where we see Javier beat the living shit out of Micah. So I feel like that alone earns him an honorable mention to be like one of the dudes who was just done with Micah's shit when we see them fight. But yeah, Javier again, his journey, he has like a similar tale that we get to see in the first Red Dead Redemption. So again, like I said, I can't reference it in terms of Red Dead Redemption 2, but I will give him his honorable mention, give him his flowers. And so yeah, that takes us to the end of the list. Like I said, let me know in the comments your favorite characters. Let me know who you would move up in my list, who you think doesn't deserve to be on my list, because we do have I think it's 23 members of the gang, if I'm stand corrected, or 23 or 24, and so everyone's list is going to differ when it comes down to whittling it down to a top 10. I do feel like Strauss is someone I probably ignored and maybe should have put on this on this list. But yeah, all in all, I would say Red Dead Redemption 2 boasts a diverse and memorable cast of characters. It elevates the storytelling, and I think each character brings unique perspectives, motivations, and aches and arcs, contributing to the immersive and emotionally charged narrative experience throughout their depth, development, and impact on the story. So again, I just figured let me just do this little video, little laid back video, just talking about the characters, nothing too deep. I will have gameplay and iconic scenes that I feel necessary to put up, I will have them up in the background. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, wherever you are in the world, stay safe, stay healthy, stay dangerous, stay blessed. Peace out.
Well, I'm sorry to have kept you.
Come on, let's get going. They spoke to Bill about a job, needing security.
After the farce of stealing the horses for them, why are we doing this?
Because we need to stay in with them, and they're paying.
So what kind of security they want?
We're about to find out. Now come on.
This seem legit to you, Bill?
Video essays and stuff, but in the meantime right now, my monitor, because I'm used to my camera being on my monitor, but I moved the camera.
Stop right there!
It was not. This is your fault. This is nobody's fault, Henry.
If you're really like into some nature shit, on weekends you can always